I don't know what to say, Bronco Nation, besides that I'm sick to my stomach. And this is my reaction video to the news that Boise State has backed out of the Arizona Bowl due to rising COVID cases within the program. Family members close to the action, family members of players on the team are saying that there are quite a lot of cases. So I don't think this is a situation where Boise State is had a couple players out and decided not to play. It's obvious that there's a reason that this happened. But for Boise State fans, this is devastating because this is now the third time in 4 years that Boise State won't be playing a bowl game or won't complete a bowl game when they were bowl eligible and selected or imminently to be selected to play. I mean, you talk about 2018 when Boise State first quarter gets canceled, lightning strikes in the first quarter and they cancel the bowl game. 2019, Boise State loses a bowl game. 2020, the team opts not to play even though they were going to be selected to play in one. And then 2021, team out due to COVID. And it's just compounding right now. This video, I didn't really introduce it well. This video is just my reaction to Boise State backing out of the Arizona Bowl. I haven't pre-gamed it. I've written down a very few notes, as you can see right there. There's very few notes. There's just kind of outline of what I maybe want to talk about. But I'm just speaking from the heart here. I'm reacting same as most of you. I found out the news, about a couple hours ago. I think it was a couple hours ago. Came out of work and came off the flight and looked at my phone, and there it was. And I'm sick to my stomach. I'm devastated right now. At least we're finding out, a week in advance versus moments before kickoff, like we did last time with, or not moments before kickoff, but after kickoff with the 2017. And it's not the same as 2020 when Boise State didn't even go to a bowl game. I think this one hurts more than that because Boise State was slotted to. But it's compounding. Like I said, it's year after year now. Boise State coming off of a 7-5 record where they could have achieved much more, 35 points away from a perfect season. Really close games. 1 point loss to Oklahoma State. You've got, one possession loss to Air Force. So one possession loss to UCF where Boise State had a chance to win it in the final moments and didn't. Only really big loss was to Nevada, and Boise State had that game or was close. So, was playing well in the first half and let it slip away in the second half. So it's just a hard season to end on. 3 bowls canceled, 1 lost, no bowl wins since 2017. Boise State hasn't had a bowl win since 2017, and next year when bowl season rolls around, assuming Boise State will be bowl eligible, which should be a good assumption, but assuming they're bowl eligible when bowl season runs around, they'll be in the unique position for this program that they haven't played in a bowl game, haven't won a bowl game in 5 years. That is a point that Boise State has never been in. Founded in 1996, 3 years later, goes to a bowl game, wins that humanitarian bowl. Season after that, wins humanitarian bowl. They've had bowl losses, but they've always won most of the bowl games that they've played. I think they're 11-20 is what they're on bowl record, and they've always had the wins interspersed between. You've never gone a 5-year stretch without a bowl win. I mean, you have players on this team, the majority. Pretty much, there's some COVID exceptions where you've got some players playing, have been on the team for a long time. But I'm pretty sure sitting next season, there'll be no players on the team that were on that 2017 roster. It's very rare to have a 6-year player. I mean, DJ Harper was a 6-year player, but you very rarely have a 6-year player on the team. So Boise State is going to be in a slot where they don't have players on the team that remember winning a bowl game. You have people who are becoming fans of Boise State, growing into the age of where you start paying attention to football, middle school or high school, whenever that is, becoming fans of Boise State. There's probably some people watching this video that did not actively watch or have not actively watched Boise State win a bowl game. And that is unprecedented for a program that has been the top, if you take into all the last 20 years together, has been the top Group of 5 program. And even the last 10 years, Boise State's kind of taken maybe a step back from where they were before, still one of the top Group of 5 programs in the country. And they're going to be 5 years without having won a bowl game. Been in 2, or been in line to go in and play 2, and 2 canceled, and then the 3rd season where the team opts out. So that's kind of what I'm feeling right here. It's not just this season. It's not just this game. It's everything compounding into this. What led up to this? So obviously the COVID situation. We've got the new virus or new variant within the virus coming around. That's wrecking havoc in the bowl season. Boise State's not the first team to back out of a bowl game so far this season. So there's lots. So that, of course, that's rising up. Players come home from other parts of the country because they were home for Christmas. Boise State's in a unique position here where they're playing a bowl game after Christmas. A lot of times, Boise State would play the Las Vegas Bowl. A lot of times was prior to Christmas, and then before that, Idaho Potato Bowl prior to Christmas. Boise State's played after Christmas before. It's not unprecedented, but they're in the unique position, at least in recent years here, where they're playing a bowl game after Christmas. So you always have that threat of players going to other parts of the country where maybe they have the viruses hitting them differently, and they come back and bring that back with them. So of course that's what led to this. But I think there's another issue here, which definitely begs to be answered by the program. Maybe not answered, but at least is a question in the fans' minds, is that Boise State was under a lot of pressure, external and even internal pressure, with this bowl game selection. It was the Arizona Bowl, but it wasn't just the Arizona Bowl, it was the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl. And I'm not going to comment either way on Barstool Sports, but there was, because of Barstool Sports' reputation, if you want to know what I'm talking about, you can definitely look that up. That's easy to find out. But because of Barstool Sports' reputation, there was a lot of external pressures in the media and from certain members of the community that Boise State shouldn't even be playing in this bowl game. Now, I don't think that when you play in a bowl game under a sponsor, that you're playing in that game has anything to do with that sponsor. The sponsors, to me, for a bowl game, the sponsor is basically meaningless. It's the bowl game itself is what matters. The Arizona Bowl is what matters. The sponsors come and go, and you don't have a choice really of you got to play in bowl season. You don't really have a choice there either way. So playing in the Barstool Arizona Sports was not a endorsement or a negative, or backing out isn't an anti-Barstool Sports either. So I don't think that playing in it would have been an endorsement to Barstool, and I don't think backing out is the opposite of that. But you definitely have to wonder if that played a factor with so much negative pressure against Boise State. Idaho State's been running articles pretty much constantly about how terrible this was. You've got to wonder if that played a decision. It's almost like, and I'm not going to say this was the only reason, because obviously, as the players' families are saying, there was a lot of players with COVID. But, Nevada, they're missing half their team, basically. They're missing their head coach, and they still went ahead and played. Now, they got crushed, but I respect the fact that they went out there and they put the team that they had on the field and played. And Boise State could have done that. I absolutely believe you've got a scholarship. I don't know the number off the top of my head of how many scholarship players you have on the team. I think it's like 60 to 70, something like that. And then you have walk-ons and scout team players. I mean, Boise State could have fielded a team, whether it would have been the team that Boise State fans saw during the season, or whether it would have been a quote-unquote competitive team, whatever that word means, is another story. But Boise State could have fielded a team if they wanted to, and against an opponent like Central Michigan, while they're a competitive and competent opponent, they're not a Power 5, and they're definitely not better than any of the teams that Boise State has lost to this season, or even some of the teams that Boise State has beaten. And I think that with the odds that Boise State had on this, if I just go back here to the preview that I did of the Boise State game, so if you look at the Boise State game here, which is sorry to, like I said, I didn't pregame this video, so I'm kind of talking as the wind blows here. But favored by 72% and given an 8-point spread, which I think was low. I think Boise State, my prediction was that Boise State was going to crush it and blow Central Michigan out of the water here. So they definitely could have, I think, won this game even with second string players stepping up in positions across the board there. So I think they could have, but those outs, it's almost like Boise State was looking for a way out already. They were kind of stuck in this situation. Now the Sun Bowl had become open as of, I think it was yesterday or a couple days ago, that Miami backed out, and that was an option. I think it was yesterday that became a chance. And Boise State was being brought up as a team that could play in that game. But it is a hard pivot to go from playing Central Michigan, a group of 5 program out of the MAC, which is universally recognized, at least this season, as the worst conference in college football, or one of the worst conferences in college football, to going to play a Pac-12 team, which, while the Pac-12 might not be universally respected as a top Power 5 conference, which unfairly, I think that they are a legitimate conference for sure, they are definitely a Power 5 program out of a Power 5 conference, and that is a much harder pivot with, what are we now, 5 days away? We're on the 27th right now, so we're the 31st, so 4 days away basically from playing in that bowl game. That is a very hard pivot in the game that, while close, regionally, it's not that far away from the Arizona Bowl, it would still be a hard pivot. You got to find new space for the team. Team's got to, kind of get into a different mindset. The team hadn't even left yet for the bowl game, so that's another factor. And I don't think that's something that Andy Avalos necessarily wanted to do. It definitely didn't seem like Boise State was testing the waters. It had a high amount of interest. Now, the fan base, of course, I mean, if you're a Boise State fan, you'd rather see them play a Power 5 opponent than a Group of 5 any day. But in a first-year head coaching staff with a lot of players already that you were working with to develop into your program in the first place, and you've struggled with that this season and improved as the season's gone on, but to make that pivot with a first-year head coaching staff where you were probably going all out anyway just to try and get this bowl game, have a good showing in that, you want to play the bowl game you've prepared for. It takes a veteran coaching staff and really a veteran team used to the system to make a quick change. And honestly, Boise State hadn't even really established their system until late in the season, and we're not even sure if the offense that Tim Plow was running at the end of the year was the offense he wants to run ultimately. So I think Boise State was still making adjustments and changing, and it is a hard pivot to go from Central Michigan, Group of 5, in 4 days to Power 5 program Washington State. So I think that people bring that up and say, well, it can't have been because of the outside pressures. Boise State was committed to Barstool Sports game, to the Arizona Bowl game, and if it was any other factors, if it wasn't purely just COVID, they would have pivoted to Washington State. I don't think so. I don't think Washington State was as on the table an option as fans thought it was. And I think that this is, again, I don't have any extra knowledge. I don't have any inside information on this particular aspect, but it definitely seems a coincidence, at least, that so much pressure is being exerted on this team not to play, and then they end up not playing in this bowl game. And could Boise State have maybe found a way through it? I think so. I do think that COVID cases played a role, but that's kind of what led to this. Is I think it was a combination of factors, maybe some legitimate excuses with COVID cases, and the difficulty in prepping for a game without a lot of key players across the board, and then already maybe the hesitancy to play in this bowl game with this sponsor could have also led to that in the end for Boise State. But what does this mean? So obviously it's done. It's a done deal. Boise State's not playing in a bowl game this season, which, first off, what that means is that it's devastating for the fan base. But what does this also mean for the team? I think that it's going to hurt as well. Bowl games, people say that bowl games are meaningless, that they're unimportant, at least outside of the New Year's Six, and even then, a lot of people don't even care about those games if they're not a playoff game, which is just terrible and disgusting. I think that bowl games are very important, and I stand by that. I think that this bowl game would have been a great opportunity for recruits, for recruitment, especially, say what you want about Barstool Sports, they were giving a unique recruiting opportunity for Boise State in this game. The platform that they were going to put the game on, the way that they were going to do that, I think was going to draw, Boise State plays versus Central Michigan on ESPN. You maybe get just Boise State and Central Michigan fans watching that game. You may be someone who at 2 p.m., they don't have anything else to do, okay, I'll turn the game on. You have a Barstool Sports game, which already has a massive media presence and a big influence among the youth. You have that game, plus it's on this unique platform that no one's really thought of before or never used, a bowl game streaming on this unique interactive platform at Barstool Sports. I think you would have had a massive viewership versus what Boise State would have found on a regular platform. And you miss that opportunity now because of recruits. And especially with the way that recruits seem to be drawn to Barstool Sports. And like I said, they have a large following among the younger generation for sure. The generation of the players on the team now and those who are thinking about going to play college football now or in the near future. With such a large drawing among that generation, I think that Boise State would have had an opportunity to really pull in a lot of recruits and get exposure to players or future players that would never otherwise have watched a Boise State game or become very aware of what Boise State has to offer. There's another option here is that it's the fans, the feelings of the fans. Like I said, Boise State fans are devastated by this, obviously, and you've already had a kind of a rough year, 7-5. Now, I think for the level of schedule that Boise State was facing this season, for everything that they had coming into this with a brand new head coaching staff, a brand new head coach who's never been a head coach before, a brand new offensive coordinator who's never been an offensive coordinator at the FBS Division I level, a brand new defensive coordinator who's never been a defensive coordinator at the Division I level, a team that had a very disappointing season last year and lost to San Jose State at the end of the year there, and really didn't live up to expectations and had a lot of weak opportunities. Not just, offensive line, that continued to be a struggle this year, but defensively. Defense has been a strength this year. They were not a strength last season. So the fact that Boise State has been able to take everything that it brought in this year, and not this coaching staff's players, the last coaching staff's players, in a brand new system offensively and defensively with the toughest schedule that Boise State, I'm going to say, has ever played. I really think this was the toughest schedule that Boise State has ever played. And you bring all of that together, and the fact that they still got through the season 7-5 and were, like I said, 35 points away. And if you take out the Nevada game, if you take out the San Diego State game, it's 24 points away. And if you take out the Nevada game, then it's something like 14 points away from, winning a lot more of these games and even going undefeated if you take those 35 points away. That close to an undefeated season or a much better season, a 10-win season, that kind of thing. The fact that they were that close with everything that they brought in is incredible. I think that this program is taking the steps forward that we want to see them, even if at the surface level, 7-5 record, it doesn't seem like that. So Boise State has a lot to look forward to this season, but has a lot to look forward to going forward, and I think has a lot to draw from this season. But the fans' perspective, 7-5, 3 losses in the blue, losses to rivals, losses to Air Force, losses to Nevada, losses to San Diego State. Those don't give you a good feeling, especially with losing the last game of the year, to have to run on the rest of the offseason. And a bowl win here, a big bowl win on a unique platform against a good team that Boise State could definitely have beaten, would have been a huge positive for this fan base going into next season. It would have brought Boise State attention. That's another factor here, is that for next season, Boise State is now running off the fumes of the losses at the 7-5 record and the loss to San Diego State. They don't have the springboard that a big win against Central Michigan would have given them. Maybe they raise some media attention. Maybe Boise State doesn't start the season ranked, but maybe they end up in the just outside receiving votes, or they're on the radar of those who determine the future of Group of 5 teams. What you end up with at the end of the season, as far as rankings go, is enormously determined by how you start the season. The only reason that Cincinnati's in the top 5 or top 4 right now to even get into the playoffs is because they started the season in the top 10. If they'd started the season just outside the top 25 or in the 15 to 25 range, they probably wouldn't be in the top 4, honestly. They really wouldn't. And even though people say AP poll doesn't matter, it definitely matters, because now we have an all-human system in the CFP, and whether they like it or not, the wins on those records against ranked teams, the way those teams start, the perception of those programs is enormously determined, because there's no computer now. It's all human bias. Those biases are enormously impacted by that AP poll, whether they want to admit it or not. So Boise State had an opportunity here to springboard into next year, and now they're going to have to build the momentum and the energy. They're going to have to find that, and this is the right coaching staff to do it. Andy Avalos and his coaching staff can definitely get that done. They can definitely do that for this program, but they're going to have to manufacture all of that themselves. They don't have anything. It's a disappointing season. No bowl win. A 7-5 overall record here. This is a program right now that is going through what you might call, it's definitely a rebuild year, but it's also a rough patch right now with the way they ended last year and now the way that they've ended this year. No bowl win in the last 4 years, and 3 bowls that just got taken out from underneath them. Either, of course, 2020 was Boise State also had an impact on that voluntarily withdrawing, but no bowl wins in the last 4 years, and that is huge for this program as they try to establish themselves as the top group of 5 or one of the top group of 5 programs in the country again. And this bowl win bowl game would have been a big part to establishing that. And it's going to be interesting to see what Boise State's able to do over the offseason, if they're able to generate any hype, if their news team, if the Mountain West can help them. Of course, that's probably a dead end. Mountain West barely supports its own any of its programs, so why should they support their flagship program here? So it's going to be a tough one. Boise State's going to have to basically work their way up from the ground up. Blue-collar work ethic, that's perfect for Boise State, but they're not going to get any assistance or help, and it's going to be all on them. And they're going to have to start off strong next year if they want to generate any kind of interest in this program prior to about midway through the season. So it's going to be a tough one, and the biggest thing here is that Andy Avalos deserved better. He honestly did. And not that, it's the players' fault or the program's fault or anything, because I'm not saying it's anybody's fault right now. I'm not laying blame. I'm just making the statement that Andy Avalos, what he's done with this team, the type of coach that he has proved to be for this program, he deserved to end the season with a bowl win. And I think that's one of the biggest disappointments here, is that how hard this team has fought, the amount of turnaround that they have been able to achieve this season based on where they started, based on where they were last year, based on how they started this season, all the way through. This was a program that people didn't even think was going to get bowl eligible, who was competing for a chance to get into the Mountain West Championship game towards the end of the season. I mean, that is incredible that this program has top 25 wins, wins against BYU and also against Fresno State. Almost a 1-point loss to the winner or second place team out of the Big 12, but a top 10 team in Oklahoma State or top 15 team in Oklahoma State. So this is a great program that Andy Avalos is again bringing into greatness, and who he is helping establish in the future. And I think that next season we're going to have another little bit of a rebuild, not quite as bad as this year, another little bit of a rebuild. But then I think third season, Boise State is going to be the top team in the Group of 5 again, because of the way Andy Avalos, what he's been able to do with this program, even after one season. But he deserved to end with a win. He definitely deserved to end with a win. He deserved to end with a bowl game. Your first-year head coach, he got his team to bowl eligibility, and it would have been great. It would have been amazing to see the start, the finale of the first season of the Andy Avalos saga, which of course is just the beginning of the saga overall, but the finale of that first season to end with a bowl game on a unique platform that Boise State could have made a big impact, not just for this season, but for next year. And Andy Avalos deserved that, and these players deserve that, and I think that's disappointing. And again, I'm not leveling blame one way or the other on this one. I'm just stating that's disappointing, and as disappointing as this is for the fans, you can definitely bet that it is just as, and more so, twice as much, 3 times as much, whatever you want to say, more so disappointing for the players who fought so hard, for the players who won't be coming back next year, Khalil Shakir moving on to NFL, the players who are, and the coaches that made this happen. It's definitely, we might feel as fans, but they're the guys that actually put themselves there. We just watched and cheered them on. They're the guys who actually did it, and you can bet that this is even, you imagine what you're feeling right now, what I'm feeling. You imagine what they're feeling right now, and of course the parents and everybody else. So I think that we need to have an understanding here. We need to have the right mentality as fans. Now, we're disappointed and maybe a little angry. I think that's natural, but we shouldn't let that anger or that disappointment either spoil the season that Boise State has had and our perspective of that season, or let our anger turn into pointed anger. I think it's okay to be generally angry that this is happening, angry at the odds, angry at COVID, angry at whatever, angry at the general nature of things. But we shouldn't let that anger become pointed or focused or try to find a scapegoat. Instead, Boise State fans should be appreciative of the effort that this team has put in this season, what they've been able to achieve. And even if it's not ending on the note that Boise State fans hoped it would, take assurance and take hope, but take assurance that Boise State is going to be making dramatic strides into the future next season and the seasons beyond. Because Boise State fans, we're not one-season teams. We're not fans or teams that build our reputations around one season. We're not one-hit wonders. Boise State, as a football team, is a team that succeeds year after year and builds itself for long-term success. And that's what Andy Avalos and his coaching staff is doing. That's what they've proved that they have the capability to do this season. And I think that next year we're going to find those close losses turning into close victories instead, or at least a lot more of them. And the season after that, I think we're looking at a team that could be in the conversation, not just for the New Year's Six, but maybe pushing up against the conversation for the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to be in the playoffs in 2 years. I'm not saying that. But I'm going to say they're going to be one of those teams that is being the modern, what Cincinnati has done, what UCF has been able to do, what Coastal Carolina, BYU have all done. What Boise State used to do. We were the first to do that. We have always been the first to do those things. And we're going to get to the level of being back where we are, where we deserve to be, the team that is at the top of the Group of 5 and one of the top teams in the nation. So again, disappointed, but not disheartened. Boise State fans, there's a lot to hope for. There's a lot of great things to look back on this season. It might not feel like it, but this truly was a great year for Boise State football. And the things that they were able to achieve with everything that they had coming in, and the precedent, the foundation that they have established going forward should bring Boise State fans a large amount of hope for the future going forward into the next season, the seasons beyond. So, like I said, disappointed but not disheartened. Boise State fans, strong, bleed blue, blue collar work ethic. And as I end all of my videos, and this especially stands going from this point and what we're facing right now, going forward into next season, I want us all to remember that no matter what, we bleed blue and go!